next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So that we get organized here for a second. So we have on the consent agenda the Enrollment Demographics Task Force member appointments, and I have questions. So how many applications? Hi, Ryan. Three people were appointing. How many applications?
So there were
did we-
13 applications, and one of the applicants pulled out, so 12 total.
So I have a question about the applicant. So I don't want this to be mistaken. I think that they're all great candidates and the applications all look good. So it's no question about the quality of the people or, has everyone heard that? I'm not questioning the people themselves. But what I'm concerned about is that, or what I have questions about, I should say. I don't know if I'm concerned yet. We have voting members, and we have one parent that is, we are placing on, it's one parent and two community members, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And they're all voting members?
Correct.
So the one parent, my understanding is she works for the school district also?
Correct.
And we also have, so we do have people on the task force that are members of different areas in the school district, that work for the school district already.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, were there other parents that did not work for this? And I agree she's got a nice background here, from what I can tell, but were there other parents that did not work for the school district that don't have that connection, that could be an independent voice for the community and aren't, that we could have selected?
Yes.
So does anyone want to speak to maybe why we chose somebody that had both roles? I guess that's what I'm asking. Why are we choosing someone that has both roles versus having a parent that doesn't have that connection?
Sure. So I can speak to that. When we went through the interview process, I think part of the interview process is trying to find out the background of folks. More importantly, where they're located in the, one of the things that we've been trying to do is ensure that we have representation from all parts of our district. And the goal was to find somebody who has a good background, not only from experience, but a professional background. And I think this person brought a background that we thought would fit the group, as far as decision-making, broad thinking, sort of looking at holistic approaches, understanding the aspects of the complexity of EDTF. So as a decision maker with my interview team, we thought she would be the best fit.
I would just say from the other side as well. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Were the other parents, were any of them from her area?
I don't remember that. I need to look at the
Community
information.
members, whatever.
I'm not exactly sure.
What questions did Director Cass ask? Perhaps if you could give us an idea of how you approved?
Well, I actually didn't
Recommendation?
see all of the applications. So I saw these were the three members that were proposed, and I went through them and agreed the individual that Kimberly's referencing is the one, I believe, who had lived in Arizona, correct?
Yes.
So she had, I thought, interesting experience living in another region of the country that had explosive growth as well. And so I found that attractive in her application. And I understand what you're talking about, Kimberly, with the fact that being an employee and a parent, because there are staff member positions on the task force as well. But I found the experience living in a different area that she might be able to bring some other ideas from outside our region.
And I just point out as well, the board appointed folks are the community member aspect. So I appoint staff to the board. So she applied, I guess my point is she applied as a parent, not as a staff member. And so
Right.
the flip side of that would be, we have hundreds, literally, of staff members who are parents in our community who we want to be mindful of excluding them from their legitimate rights to where their parent had and exercise their parent voice in different decision-making capacities within the district. Similarly, we have a similar situation on the Start Time Task Force where we have a member of that particular task force who is also an employee in the district, but her primary role on the task force is that of parent, and that's her motivation and the hat she wears in that particular arena.
What does this person do?
I don't remember, she has.
I have it right here. Thank you. So it's under potential conflicts of interest where they outline it. So she works at Timbercrest. Do you want me to say this out loud or do you want to read it?
I just want to do other board members want to know.
While Dawn's looking at that, I hear what you're saying, but there's a lot of, I hear what you're saying. I guess the difficulty I have is we're trying to get a wide representation from our community. We're trying to get more diversity of the people that I've heard us say we're trying to have more diversity of the people that we're appointing. And I think that it would be good for one of the board members, because I feel like we're rubber stamping something that this is the board's job, and maybe I'm wrong on that, instead of seeing all the applications. And I know I wasn't here when the board decided however this was going to be structured. Because also the gentleman from Cascadia, while he has an amazing background, amazing, I would choose him. But then the conflict of interest again that he points out is he works with the district, or he doesn't work for the district, but he's collaborated with the district on several college and high school tech prep, core to college math. And again, I'm just wondering if that doesn't sway in any way the person that's representing us.
Sure. I guess
And he's got an amazing
I guess I
background.
would disagree with you on the diversity. I think participating on this and facilitating this group probably for the last 3 years, I think you have a very diverse group. I think the group that you have there is diverse in their experience. I think very diverse in their thinking. I think very diverse in their opinions. I really believe the group that you have in front of you are making great decisions from a what's best for all. And so as far as the relationship they may have, I think all of them have some relationship as parents. I think all of them are qualified as individuals. I think it's some subjective decision as far as appointing 3 new members to the task force. And this was the three members that we believe that would fit best with the task force rolling through the next 3 years and beyond, as far as making recommendations to the district or to the board as far as what's best from a long-term, short to long-term perspective.
So how many of the 12 applications that you got had conflicts of interest?
I don't remember that, so I would have to go back and take a look at all the applications.
Is it common to have conflicts of interest in the application?
It's very common.
And is it usually, is it usually employees or associated some way that perhaps is a monetary or some kind of connection with the district that?
I'll give you an example of 2 that we currently have on the board. One of the members is a real estate agent in the North End. She represents sort of the area, she says all of North Shore, but she lives in the North End part of the district. So that would potentially be a conflict of interest. But we felt that the background she has in the real estate market was really important to the task force to do. We have another gentleman who owns and operates his own surveying company in North Shore. I believe that would be a conflict of interest. Now, we don't have business ties with these individuals, But just knowing what's going on, I think there is a conflict of interest from a business owner or a representative working for a company in the district.
Are those the parent representatives that you just referred to?
I don't remember if they're parent or.
Or appointed
Yeah.
as staff?
Excuse me?
So they're not appointed as staff, so
They're not
parent,
appointed as staff.
community, there's something like that.
Yeah, so they're either a parent or a community member.
So how many parent and community members do we have on the EDTA?
Well, we originally started at 6, and then I believe we increased that to 8 or 9, and now we increased that to 13. So we grew from 6, original 6, I believe was the original number.
Right.
And then I think,
at 6.
yeah, I
And then
believe over
thought
the
8.
last, I want to say 2 openings, we've increased that to, I believe, 13.
And that was because you had applications that were kind of like, that's all we had, so you took them all?
Actually, no, I think the approach that we took was we wanted a better representation from a district-wide aspect. And so I think when we approached Larry and at that time.
You know, we intentionally upsized the committee as we headed into the boundary work, knowing that it would be beneficial to have a larger parent and community representation on that, both just in numbers as well as in geographic and other considerations that they bring to the table, particularly around the boundary work.
Yeah, and in this recommendation, even though there's only 2 openings, we're recommending 3. So we're upsizing the task force again from a community and a parent representation.
I guess, I don't guess, and I don't know if the rest of the board feels this way. I hear your position. I feel that we're trying to get representation from, like you said, what you want, or what the goal of the EDTF is, different regions. And then also people that don't have a connect, as a parent, that they don't have, if they're a voting member, that they're, I would like to see that they're separate, or that we at least can see the applications and whoever, Amy or whoever, because the fact that you didn't see the rest of the applications, I would just, not as a, anyway, that in the future.
I would just point out that in the memo, and I believe the same memo that's the action item tonight was a memo that was also previously in your briefing, and it does offer the invitation for board members to view all the applications and support services. So that opportunity has been available.
Maybe we can include them in our board briefing, because I did not see that sentence.
Last sentence in the memo.
I didn't see that sentence in the memo, so maybe we can include those, it would make it easier. Next time. I don't want to belabor this, I just wanted to ask those questions, and maybe for the next time we could just include them.
Sure.
There's no problem with that. We're just trying to be thoughtful about not overloading your already overloaded board briefings with more information that you might find useful.
Yeah, that's
Which
kind
I
of,
appreciate simply, but I just want to explain, I'm kind of wondering, if I shouldn't vote no on this, because this is not the first concern raised about task force appointments or task forces that are currently working, that I've had quite a few complaints from community members about how the task forces operate and what the expectation is. So I have enough history, unbelievably, in this district to remember when this was a board-appointed piece. And board members didn't enjoy appointing those pieces because it wasn't easy to find someone just off the cuff. Oh, we need 2 more people. Go out in your neighborhood and see who you can rope into it. And so I much prefer our process of application. But for the board-appointed positions, I'm kind of wondering if we shouldn't be a little bit more involved in the process than we are at this point.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion on these items?
I'd like to pull it off the agenda. But then,
Be working. I would suggest for the sake of time that maybe work on moving it, probably proceed with voting on the rest of the consent agenda with the understanding that you're not voting on item C9 at this moment.
Any questions? Any questions on the rest of it? Or discussion?
I did have a question for the supplemental curriculum for AP, IB, and college and high school English language and composition, man's search for meaning. Is that you? Because I don't, oh,
Is that the one, John, that you're gonna answer questions on?
I think it was later on.
So,
you were answering other questions on the other one?
Gretchen's upstairs.
Maybe.
C8, are we talking about C8?
It's probably not quite as detailed on the curriculum per se as it is the total expenditure item on what we've received. Has the building budget will purchase copies for student use. Many AP students will prefer to purchase their own copies for annotation.
I got it.
And my concern is that we're requiring students to purchase things that are available. And I see a head shaking, so I don't think maybe you're requiring, but what exactly is said to students? I mean, if I was a student in the class and everybody's getting a copy, I would feel like I needed to get a copy too.
So, do you want me to respond? Okay, so we had a discussion at CMAC about that, but we do, if it's a curriculum that we're requiring students to read in a class, we will purchase that for them. What we have found over the years is that students in any class, whether it be AP, IB, or even regular English classes, whether it's junior high or high school, like to annotate their own books, and so they would sometimes rather purchase their own and be able to use them and make notes in them and keep them for their own purposes rather than use a school-provided textbook or novel. So that option is there for students, but we will definitely provide those materials for all students.
Well, wouldn't that be then true for any of it? And I see it's on the other one as well, that you say AP students, many of them will prefer to purchase their own copies. So is that just for our elucidation of how it all rolls?
It's a common practice. When I asked it, I think it was Gavin Molitor from Winville, when I asked him, he says that's a common practice that we use in our high schools, our junior highs, even when I was at Timbercrest. Many students would rather purchase their own novel and mark it up and annotate it rather than not being able to mark up their novel that was given by the school.
Are they required to annotate?
Are they required? Usually that's part of a.
So then they can't do it in the book.
They
so
can use
Usually
sticky
a
notes.
Oh,
They can use
sticky notes, okay.
And that's the option that
Okay.
students can do, and they can either use sticky notes within the novel and then turn it back in, or they can purchase their own and mark it up themselves.
Well, I appreciate you giving the board a full picture of that, and that's what I'm thinking that is about, is just to give us an idea of that. I'd just like, as an aside, to say that I always purchase the used books that were already annotated. I think that's the wise way to go.
All right, board members, I need you to rejoin the meeting. Let's see the updated list there. Any additional discussion or questions on these, on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And that does pass unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the North Shore Schools Foundation proclamation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion or thoughts on this? Thank you.
Least we can do.
We'd like to support your work of supporting the district.
Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And again, unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the core curriculum materials for secondary sustainable engineering and design and English language arts. Is there a motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on these items? Seeing none?
Oh, wait.
Sorry.
I do have a question, and this underlies my own ignorance of the process. So once a material is approved, how often is there a process for reviewing approved pieces of curriculum later? And the reason why I'm thinking about this is for Walk Two Moons, it does reference some issues around race, and we're going through the process of a district of learning more about how we can strengthen our district that way. And I'm thinking if we decide after that process that perhaps we want to evaluate books like this differently, when would be, is there a time when it would come back up again? Thank you.
Kathleen or either one of us can do that.
Yes, we will definitely review those annually through the CMAC committee, and specifically in relationship to Walk Two Moons, there will be some training provided for the teachers, and then also we requested the teachers to come in the spring and share with us how things went with the novel, and we would discuss that and provide feedback and decide if we want to do anything different at that point.
Okay, so just, again, for my own understanding, are all materials reviewed annually? Or is this something you're thinking about for this one?
Now, this one was specific in the request that the CMAC put into the minutes, was that this novel would be reviewed with the teachers at the end of the year, but we don't do that for every material.
Yeah, what I would add is core curriculum, like the literacy curriculum, is not reevaluated annually. It's on a cycle of 5 to 7 years that we look at it, because the expense is so great that even if we reviewed it and found out there were big problems with it, we would certainly be challenged to find that much money again. So we certainly review it and put in supplemental materials to make things better or fill the gaps that we found, but the cycle for the large adoptions is 5 to 7 years.
That makes sense. What about novels, like this case?
We do not review those annually.
No.
Okay, and there isn't a cycle set up for them.
This one is kind of an interesting one. It's part of this Springboard curriculum, and it's a recommended book. There are other books in that adopted curriculum that are also recommended, so teachers want to try this one, and we think that's a great idea, but we wanted the feedback around it, and if necessary, Springboard also recommends some other novels that we could use.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. And that passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the second reading of resolution number 727, the 2015 bond refunding. Is there a motion to approve? Move. Second. Any discussion on this item?
Always like to see savings.
I know, saving taxpayer money. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And again, unanimous passage. Next item on the agenda is the second reading of Board Policy 2020, Course Design, Selection, and Adoption of Instructional Materials. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Unanimous passing. Next item on the agenda is the second reading of board policy number 3418, response to student injury or illness. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Questions, discussion?
I liked this. Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And again, unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the second reading of Board Policy 4120, public access to district documents, district records. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on this item?
Just for my clarity, does this mean that we are talking about hiring someone? That is not what the language says. It just says we are talking about appointing someone. And
We're not talking about hiring somebody at this point. Jeff Sherwood will remain our designated public records officer.
Do we see that changing anytime soon? This was just a discussion in the last meeting, so.
Not in the immediate sense. It's definitely, given the increased volume of public records requests, it's definitely an area of need that we're identifying, but we're not contemplating adding somebody at this time.
Jeff feels that he's sufficient for the job. He's smiling.
I don't know if sufficient would be the right term, but, this would need to, falls into a larger conversation about what would all of our needs be, and given limited resources, where we might choose to apply and where we might choose to continue to find ways to muddle through.
And I'm assuming you have been trained regarding the provisions of the Public Records Act.
Probably gives training.
You certainly always speak as if you are.
Yeah, yes, I have. I've received quite a bit of training on it, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Most districts, larger districts have a separate person that does this?
It would likely be more common that you would have an individual not at an executive director level position who would be responsive to public records requests. Oftentimes it might be a lower level staffer in the communications office or something in that effect that be responding to public records requests. Our communications staff is pretty lean. Our HR staff is pretty lean. Just a role that probably unique in our district, but one that Jeff has fulfilled for many years here.
Perhaps it might be helpful when we engage in that conversation if we have some of the data around how many public records requests we get and the workload that produces for employees.
Thought we had provided something along those lines recently.
Possibly.
But yes, it's something we can certainly talk about.
When we get to that point. Yeah, great, thanks.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. And again, passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the second reading of Board Policy 4314, notification of threats of violence or harm. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any questions or discussion?
Again, I liked this. Well done.
Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And again, passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the action item that we took off the consent agenda, and that's the Enrollment Demographics Task Force member appointments. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Assuming there's discussion since it was removed.
Is there any way to, since we didn't have it in our board briefing, and I understand that you said that there was that statement at the bottom, is there any way for us to postpone this to the next meeting and be able to get the applications?
Ryan, can you speak to the impact of that?
Of course, we can postpone anything. I mean, there's going to be impact.
There's a meeting tomorrow, isn't there?
There's a meeting tomorrow. However,
I just laughed or something.
However, we want to make sure that the board's comfortable with the selection process.
I just think it's our person that we're appointing, it's board appointed, right? So I would like to look at it. It's not a popular thing to say, but I feel for due representation, that it would be good if I at least saw them.
So I was gonna say this earlier. I'm just gonna put this thought in board members' brains, and I understand where your concerns are coming from, and certainly in the future, looking at all of the applications is not a bad idea, especially for the person picking it. That would be very handy. But if our concern is about conflict of interest, really the number one conflict of interest is gonna be with a parent, that they need to be in a position where they are not being conflicted by my child is going to be impacted by this boundary change or whatever decision is being made. And we certainly have seen our parents do a masterful job of moving beyond that and representing all of the students in the district. So if that's really our concern is about conflict of interest, then we need to keep that in mind, that the biggest conflict of interest is going to be from parents, and then we need to step back and say, is that who we want then on our EDTF task force? I guess that's what Debbie
So for me, that's not my concern. It's actually that I've received a number of complaints from different community members about the task forces. And I think that the board has given away that piece that they had to appoint community members through a process. And while I believe I said that I appreciate the process very much, I think it has brought in a lot more people who are more interested in serving. I think that then delegating it to one member of the board to be the one person who kind of represents the board on that isn't very full or thoughtful. And I think that getting the applications board-wide and looking those over and understanding the process a little better could only be good.
Thank you for that clarification. That's not what I was saying. I was referencing the conversation that we had earlier where I kept hearing conflict of interest and conflict of interest. So that was the point I was making, and that was all that I was addressing at that time.
I was just clarifying what my major concern was and what I think the board should be more involved in.
I hear what both of you are saying. I think you're saying two different things, and it's not, they're not in conflict with one another, no pun intended there. But I would, especially as Ryan, I heard what you said, a community person, you want someone who's professional in that field. So when we're talking about the gentleman who is the dean of Cascadia, and he's dealing with population growth too. As a community member, I understand, and you said there were a couple other community members that have different backgrounds and experiences. That makes a lot of sense, but the parent, I would like to see the parents separate from the school district, so that they are separate entities that are representing their community. Just like as a board member, I can't work for the school district. I'd like to be a substitute teacher though, emergency stuff, but I can't. So I have to go to my neighbor in the school district.
Well, let me clarify that. Actually, all of their reps on their community or board appointed are parents. So.
Correct, I hear that, but they're also part of the school district, and they have a different, I'm not saying that they can't see the parent side, but they also have a different perspective being a part of the school district than someone who's a parent and doesn't work inside. A parent is an outside person taking a look in, working there, you're inside and outside, but you're looking from two different perspectives and world views essentially.
Sure, and know that the decision we made when we selected this person wasn't because she was a parent in the district, it was because she was coming from a different state. I had a different experience that we could use, at least we thought we could use, a different perspective of what someone else might be doing. So that was when we went through that process and looked at the background, that's what we focus on as well. Somebody from a different place, a different state, maybe we can learn something that other task forces has used. That was the interest for us.
Do we ever get applications from people not parents I didn't realize everybody was a parent. I mean, we have a large community that aren't parents.
Yeah, most of, I would say all of our, except one, all of our task force members are parents. Now, they were parents at one point in time and their kids graduated, but they were parents in the district where they started on the task force.
Oh, okay, so some of them are still parents, but their children aren't attending the
Sure,
district.
the term just hasn't ended or their term hasn't expired.
I think, again, it's not about how you chose the person, or I think, I'm very much not questioning that. And, not having been through this process before, if I was last year, just being new on the board, didn't ask the right questions, and now I'm starting to ask questions that I'm thinking about. So I apologize for that. At the same time, it's board appointed, so it looks like we've put this in your hands, and at one point we had it in our hands, and.
I have an idea.
Go ahead.
Okay, so.
And one more thing, if Amy,
Yeah.
if Amy had at least looked at the applications, which I'm not saying you should or shouldn't have, then I could have at least asked. But
So-
nobody's looked at
This
all of
was
them.
gonna be my suggestion, since
Okay.
I've been sitting in on the EDTF meetings, and I know they're kind of at a critical point, and to lose too much time, I think would be difficult for them, since they're finalizing the last draft. I was gonna see what you guys thought of this. I'm happy to get all the applications and do the same, geographic analysis, and look through all the backgrounds and summarize it for folks, so that we can be ready for next meeting, and we can discuss it, have a rich discussion, and then therefore, I think the integrity of our task forces is too precious a commodity, that we need to definitely take it very seriously, and if there's any sort of questions, absolutely, let's dive in. But in the interest of helping the task force keep on track, what would you think if everyone gets the applications, but I'll try to do a little summary for folks, and then we can dive in next time.
I'm not even sure you have to do a summary. I think everyone getting the applications would be great. And that would be
And everyone
extremely
get the
helpful.
applications, right. And then I guess where I'm trying to get to is perhaps if there's any that pop out to me as looking great, I don't know if we've ever selected a task force by committee before, and it could take, I don't know if it's gonna take a long time, that's all.
I'm okay. I mean, I just appreciate that our eyes have been on it, if this is board appointed.
Right.
That's all.
So I think I'm seeing general agreement to defer this to the next meeting, is that correct? Okay. So this will be brought back as an action item on the next meeting's agenda. Okay. Right,
Ryan,
next item on the
Ryan,
agenda.
wait, Ryan, will those potential, have you already informed those?
We haven't
folks?
informed you.
Do any of these applicants attend the EDTF meetings currently?
A few have attended just to get the flavor of what's going on, I believe, as guests. But we haven't notified any of the candidates, any of the 13 or 12 candidates that we interviewed.
Tomorrow is a meeting.
Tomorrow's the meeting.
I hope they come just to watch.
Me too.
So